Pediatric speech language pathologist and Apraxia specialist. I want to welcome you to the Apraxia Picture Sound Cards application. This is an overview of the application. We do have more in-depth tutorials on how to use this application. There are two versions of this application, a professional version and a parent version. And the only difference between the two is that the pro version allows you to data collect and track progress for multiple students. It is important to note that this is not the SpeechEasy Apraxia program itself. It is a materials tool for the program. While we do have a physical card kit with over 900 cards, including the picture cards, the sound and number cards, and the hand cue cards, we wanted to offer SLPs and parents a more affordable alternative in the format of an application. The SpeechEasy Apraxia Program Comprehensive Instructional Manual can be purchased as a hard copy or as a separate application. The application is not only appropriate for children with apraxia of speech, but also for individuals, for example, with Down syndrome, CP, even autism, severe phonological disorders, or any other condition affecting motor planning for speech production. Now, I just want to orient you to some of these features. The About page has some information about the application itself and then the program itself here, so you can read more about the program there. The Help section will give you information about each section, the picture cards, the sound and number cards, the hand cue cards. The point I want to really show you here is the goal bank. And the goal bank is, these are suggested goals that will likely need some modification to meet the specific needs of each child that you're working with or for your own child. But in order for you to be better equipped with appropriate goals for apraxia, whether it be in an IEP meeting or in a clinical setting. So we do have goals here that are broken down into different categories. We even have goals for prosody of speech and even behavior goals, as well as phonological awareness goals. Okay, so one of the questions I often get is, well, how is this application different? How is this different than some other articulation applications? Well, the big point I want to really try to make here is that this is not an articulation approach. In fact, an articulation approach is not appropriate for a child with apraxia of speech. Just because the word pineapple, for example, has a P in it in that initial position doesn't mean that that's an appropriate target word for a child because of its complexity. Pineapple is a multisyllabic word. It's maybe just too complex for a child to say. Or the word binoculars. It's a 4-syllable word. It starts with B. But if a child is having real difficulty even putting one or two or three sounds together, stringing sounds together, that would not be an appropriate target word for a child. So here you're able to control the format of your targets and starting with words and structures that are simpler and then building up to those more complex structures or even into phrases and sentences. Anytime you see an icon down here with an I, this orange with this I in it, that means that there's information there. So this is an info tab. And I encourage you to read through that because it does have information about this section of the app instruction. How do I do this? The navigation of it. What does this feature do? How do I access the data collection feature? So all of this information is here in these info tabs. Okay. Again, there's another info tab explaining how to use this feature of the application. So when you're working with a child, you may want to go ahead and select words in that consonant, vowel, consonant format. So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's say I'm working on the K sound, that K or C, in CVC word initial. Some of these targets are in consonant vowel or vowel consonant formats, but there's only a handful. Most of them are in CVC. So if we want to go ahead and listen to the word cage, we press on the sound icon. Cake. If we wanted to see the word, we can tap on it and flips to the back, and it has the written word on the back.
Calf, can, cane, cap.
Okay, so what I'm doing down here on this on the bottom
Cape
is my data collection. Now there's a smiley face, a neutral face, and a frown face, minus the eyes and the nose. And this is done specifically so the child is not aware of what those icons represent, so it's very abstract. The colors are a muted blue, and it's off down to the lower corner, out of the way, so we can data collect discreetly. The child is not seeing a big red X for a wrong production. We don't want the child to feel guilty about their productions, and we also want to be able to control the feedback that we give to the child, which is one of the principles of motor learning, is the amount and frequency of feedback that we give to the child as well. So we're able to discreetly track a child's responses down in this lower left-hand corner. Let's go back to our menu here, and let's say that I have a child that only can produce bilabial sounds. Bilabial meaning words that we formulate with our lips, the P, the B, and the M. So maybe they only have those sounds in their repertoire, or maybe that's what we want to target for that particular session. Then I'm able to select consonant, vowel, consonant format words with bilabial sounds only.
Peep, pipe.
And it will quickly pull my stimulus set that has all of those words
Bib,
that have a bilabial and bilabial sound on the front and the back end of a CVC format. Okay, so let's say I wanted to work on sounds that were, for example, alveolar to velar. And if you're wondering, wow, I don't know what that terminology means, again, go to your info tab here, and I have description of what that means. An alveolar is a sound produced right on the back. They almost by that part where you burn your mouth when you take a bite into a pizza. That's what an alveolar sound is. That's that location for T and D and N and S, Z and L. Velars are sounds produced in the back of the throat. So if we want to have target words of that movement going from the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth, the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth, that's what we're targeting. Then I can specifically hone in on words that have that movement pattern. And again, what makes this appropriate for apraxia is you're able to control the movement pattern of the sounds that you're working on.
knock, neck, tack, tug.
Okay, so you get the idea there. If I wanted to go ahead and end my session, I can do so. I can write a therapy session note. If I wanted to make any comments about how the session went, I can pick the child that I was working with, and I can go ahead and save that data to that child. Also here, I'm able to write profile notes if there's anything else that I specifically want to note about the child. This is oftentimes where I put the child's goals so I know what we're working on, and here is their historical data so I can go back and see how we're progressing. Again, there's an icon here for info. Okay, now let's look at the hand cues here, and this is the real secret sauce, if you will, of the program. So to really get the most out of this application, you're going to want to use these hand cues, because this is really what makes the child be able to better produce and better plan for the movement patterns of these words. Otherwise, yes, the application does become just electronic flashcards. But when using the technique and the method, this is really where you're going to see the magic happen. So on this info tab here, I have a lot of information about the hand cues, about how to use this function of the application, the rationale behind the hand cues. teaching the hand cues, etc., etc. So I often get the question, well, how do I know which ones to start with? You always want to start with where the child is most successful with. So if you know that they can already produce a P, an M, and a B, for example, those are the sounds that you're going to want to start with. So you always want to start with what they know or what they can produce, because we want to set the child up for success. Makes sense, right? Okay, so here we go. We'll play some. So that's some examples of the hand cues itself. I do describe how to most effectively teach these in some of my tutorial videos. Again, this is just an overview video of the application. What point I do want to make is the hand cues are really used to boost activation and organization for learning, retrieval, planning, and execution of motor planning sequences for speech movements. Gestures in the form of hand cues do play a key role in the motor planning of speech production as well as for motor learning. And the hand cues are a movement themselves. So the idea of having the child perform a hand cue while they're producing speech allows the child to be actively involved in the movement process. And the movement in the form of symbolic gesture assists the child in retrieval of the sound, retrieval of the motor plan involved. So it really is a highly effective technique in helping the child plan for movement sequences for speech development. The idea of using our hands when we speak is not that uncommon. We use our hands all the time when we speak. Even when children are writing or coloring, their tongues are moving, their tongues come out. So there's this natural connection between the hands and the mouth that seems to be innate anyway. So using the hand cues in the form of a symbolic gesture is really one of the core aspects of the technique of the program. So really, I encourage you to familiarize yourself with the hand cues, using the hand cues, because yes, otherwise this app becomes expensive flashcards, and we don't want that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and end our session, and I want to just quickly orient you to the sound and number cards here. Again, there's an info page here, how to use this part of the application. Okay, so that information is there for you. And again, always start with the sounds the child can produce or that they may already recognize, because you want to start with building the child up for success. And this is sound to symbol recognition. Okay, and there's a variety of ways that I use this part of the application, and again, that's discussed in our tutorials. We also have a vowel chart, so in the event that you are just starting with consonant vowel or vowel consonant formats, this is where I start. So I have the diphthongs, which are more or less a vowel blend, or the pure vowels, which is really just a vowel, just that of the articulators don't move from one articulatory posture to the next. They just they're pretty neutral. Okay. So let's go ahead and end our session here. And that concludes our tutorial, or actually just our overview. We do have tutorials on how to really utilize the application more specifically to the needs of the child. I hope you have enjoyed this overview, and hopefully this application can be part of your tool bank for helping your child, or if you're an SLP, helping the children that you work with Apraxia, and hopefully this has been very helpful for you. Thank you.